As it turns out, this brand new refrigerator, which happens to be identical to the one Brian and Chrissy have, and I only know that because Chrissy walked in here once and said, "Oh, we have the same exact refrigerator in our home." Turns out some of this $1,000 worth of food that got into every nook and cranny seems like some of it has oozed into places that are very difficult to, now that I got most of the food out of here, you open up the refrigerator and it smells like there's a dead body in here. The freezer doesn't stink quite as bad because when Chrissy turned the electricity back on after telling me we tripped the breaker, which actually that doesn't make any sense because as I pointed out to her, I said, "Chrissy, you didn't trip a breaker." Cleveland Browns, Super Bowl 2026. We didn't trip a breaker that turned off all the electricity because the breaker was on, number one. Number two, I said, "Chrissy, if you're going to make up a lie, you need to come up with a much better lie than that." Because I've got multiple texts from you, Chrissy, that say, "Hey, if you pay your electric bill, we can have the electricity turned back on." And the electricity was not turned off to the building. The electricity was still on because Brian McDermott's sister's husband was still living upstairs, where Brian enjoys taking pictures and videotapes of his young female tenants naked or nearly naked. And I simply came over here and ran an extension cord from the other part of the building where they did not cut the wire to or otherwise disconnect the power to the 90% of the building. I'm estimating it could be 85%. So they illegally, based on the research I've done on Google and ChatGPT, they illegally turned off my electricity, and the 3-day notice that they taped right over here, some of which we can't get some of the residue from the tape they used off. And by the way, I said, "Chrissy, you were telling me the electricity was shut off because we accidentally tripped the breaker?" Well, the breaker wasn't tripped. And even if it was, I said, you got to be able to, if you're going to tell lies, you got to be able to do a little bit better than that with your lies. Because I said, was the water also shut off because we tripped the breaker? Because the electricity and the water were shut off at the same time. And then suddenly when I pointed out that what they did was against the law, suddenly the electricity and the water were magically turned back on. And when you turn on the breaker, that's not what turns the water on and off. The water is not affected by that.